Welcome to class. Somebody asked the question about how to keep my phone charged and what good are these smartphone apps if my phone dies quickly after a disaster. So I'm going to talk to you quickly about a device that utilizes the power in your vehicle's battery. After a large earthquake, you probably won't be able to drive very far. Roads are going to be torn up, traffic's going to be very snarled. So utilize that energy that's sitting in your car battery. Bring your car battery inside, wherever that is for you. Hook it to this device. It's about $14, and I'm going to give you information on how to buy it. I'm not a big proponent of spending a lot of money on disaster preparedness, but I think this is, for the right person, I think this is a good device to have. These alligator clips hook to your car battery. Red goes to the positive, black goes to the negative. The other end of this device is a cigarette lighter. You will need an adapter like this that goes into a cigarette lighter, and this is USB-A, USB-C, whatever. This depends on what kind of chargers you have, but basically you're gonna hook your phone charging cord into here. And that little device is like $9. Hopefully you have something like that already laying around your house. And what it does is it helps you charge your phone. Here's the QR code for Amazon. Sorry, I know not everybody is dying to purchase from Amazon. Like I said, it's about $14. There's the QR code if you want to order from Amazon, and then I will send you the link in the follow-up email for this class. And then here's a good article. I thought it was very easy to read, explaining how this device steps down the power that's in your car battery in order to be utilized by your smartphone. And this article does the math for you, and it explains how you can charge your phone 20 to 30 times off of your car battery and still have enough power in that battery that when you put it back in your car, you can get your car to turn over and the engine will start. Pretty impressive little device. For 14 bucks, I think it's kind of worth it if you're in a situation where you're lucky enough to have a car. That's it for charging small electronics. We're going to get started with class. The first topic is water. Super important after earthquakes especially. So just a little bit of history or geology, I guess. Where do we get our water? 30% of it is from up here, top right of the screen, the Tolt River watershed. About 30% of our water comes from there. The other 70% comes from the Cedar River watershed. The pipes leading from these two watersheds to the Seattle area are very, very old. And that's water pipes and sewer pipes, super old. They are not going to do well in a strong earthquake. They are going to break, and it will take a very, very long time for those pipes to get fixed. When the earth shakes, pipes break, and that's all the pipes that we utilize here in an urban setting. It's the water pipes, the sewer pipes, and the gas pipes. They're all going to break. So we're going to talk about water. You'll hear me in the rest of these classes, you'll hear me talking about the priorities after an earthquake. I want to give you really simple guidance of what to do first after an earthquake. Number one is going to be check on people and pets around you. Is everybody okay? Is there anything you need to do right now to save lives? So check on people and pets around you. The next thing you're going to do is manage utilities. And we'll get into that next week, especially about why utilities are such a big deal after an earthquake. To handle water, you're going to turn off water to the building, whatever building you're in, whether that's your home, your apartment building, whatever. Turn off water to that building until you know that the pipes bringing water to your building have remained intact. Because if not, somebody in that building is going to turn on the water or flush a toilet or something like that. You're going to pull in contaminated water, and now all the water in your pipes is contaminated. So turn off water to the building that you're in until you know that the pipes have survived the quake. In most buildings, there's two places to turn it off. There's the one that's inside the building you're in, and the one that's out here by the street underneath or connected to the water meter. So in your building, you might have things that look like this. It really depends on the building you're in. Single family homes, usually a little bit easier to get to than an apartment building. In my home, this is the bottom left is actually my water shutoff. I labeled it that it was the main water shutoff valve and to turn it off after an earthquake. Encourage you to do that. In fact, I think it's on your to-do list, your homework list for this week. So find that main water shutoff valve in whatever building you're in. Hopefully you can get access to it, label it, and you can even practice turning it off and on. It's not going to hurt anything. Out in the street, find that location. Find that it's usually, at least in a single family home, it's usually a metal box that has a metal lid on it that you can pull off. So that's kind of what it looks like when you've taken the lid off. This is a tool, makes it super easy to get down there, find that valve and turn it. So this is called a water key. You can find them at Home Depot, Ace Hardware, all that, all kinds of shops have a water key like that. It just makes getting to that switch down there, that lever, I guess, makes it easier to get to it. So this is a close-up of what you might see down in that dirty hole that's full of mud and leaves. So you do want to clear that out. Clear it out now. Don't wait until the earthquake. So at least you know what you're looking for. And you're not having to mess with that while you've got so many other things going on. So get rid of the dirt and the leaves in that hole. So this is what you might see. This is the switch over here on the right. This is the switch is not the right word. Lever, toggle, I don't know. This is what you're going to turn. When this thing is running in line with the pipe, it means that water is flowing. When you turn it and it's crosswise to the pipe, that's when it's off. So on is when it's in line, and when it's across the pipe, that means the water is no longer flowing. And you can find this switch and you can turn it off and on as many times as you want. Nothing gets hurt. So I would definitely recommend you and everybody else in your household find this device, practice turning it off and on. Is it possible that your home pipes are okay, but the city pipes are ruptured, making your water unsafe? Yes, it's absolutely possible, which is why if you can, turn off the water in your building. That's always safer than turning it off at the street, because there's that gap between the street and your building where there could have been a break. So turn it off in your building if at all possible. If for some reason you can't get to that, then go out in the street and turn it off there. My understanding is you wouldn't need to turn it off in both places. There's probably no reason to do that. Unless you suspect a leak right there in between those two shutoff valves, in which case I would turn it off in both places, just so you're not flooding your yard or whatever with water. Yeah, Eric is here. Eric Autry works for Seattle Public Utilities. I'm glad you're here, Eric. Definitely our expert on utility questions. So yeah, I'm glad you're here, Eric. Please speak up if I say something wrong.
You're getting it 100% correct. So
okay,
yep.
Excellent. Thanks, Eric. That's nice. Okay, we're going to keep going. So Seattle Public Utility priorities, and this is straight from the horse's mouth. The first thing they are going to be interested in doing is getting water to the fire department to fight fires. That is number one. Fires are super common after earthquakes because of those breaks in the gas line. So priority number one is fighting fires. Priority number two is getting water running to those essential facilities, emergency response centers, and hospitals. So that's priority two. So number three is after the essential facilities, they're going to start restoring water to other facilities and essential businesses. They're trying to get things up and moving and support people that way, support everybody that's living here. And number four is emergency drinking water. For those folks that they're trying to get emergency drinking water to, it's not the single family homes. It is the densely populated areas where there has been a lot of damage. That's where they're going to concentrate on first. And then they'll move to less densely populated areas. So I live in a lovely little community of a lot of single family homes. I'm incredibly lucky. I get it. I am so far down on the priority list. They are not going to worry about my drinking water needs, which is why I need to have drinking water in my house for my household and as many neighbors as I can possibly support. There is not warehouses full of water stashed all over the city, just waiting for someone to open it up and make sure everybody has enough water, which is why classes like this are important. We really need to encourage folks to store enough drinking water for their household and more if they can. This device on the right-hand side is called a water buffalo. I'm weirdly very familiar with these. We had them in Saudi Arabia when I was there. There's about, my understanding is there's like 4 of these in the city. So they need to be filled with water, driven to a place for distribution. And then, there's a staff that has to man this thing and make sure it stays clean. And so, like I said, there's not a tons of water stationed throughout the city for us. We really are kind of on our own, and we really need to store our own drinking water. How much water do you need? You need 1 gallon per person per day for 2 weeks. We used to say 3 days, and then we said 10 days. And now we're finally getting smarter, and we're saying at least 2 weeks. Kind of a small chart over here, but basically it tells you how many gallons of water you need for your household. Figure out where you are on this chart, write it on your to-do list, and start putting away that much water. And then don't forget your pets. It's at least an extra 4 gallons to cover that 2-week period, maybe more. If you have a really big pet, it might take more than 4 gallons. If you have a really small pet, it may take less. Depends on how much they drool and how hot it is and all that kind of stuff. So don't forget your pets. But 1 gallon per person per day for 2 weeks should be enough to cover what you need for drinking, what you need for cooking, and a very small amount of hygiene. So it's sparse, but we can do it. How am I supposed to store that much water? I get it. It is not easy. Tuck it wherever you can. Behind the toilet in your spare bathroom. Do you have suitcases tucked somewhere? Make sure those aren't sitting empty. Throw, gallons of water in there. Any place you can think to tuck water away would be great. I have quite a bit of water in my car. I have a 4-door Subaru, nothing fancy, but every single door has 3 bottles of water on it. They're tiny little bottles. They're, I don't know, 16 ounces or something like that. They're old water bottles from different events that I just fill up and tuck them in the car. And eventually I drink them all and refill them and put them back. But any place you can tuck water would be great. And then work with neighbors. Maybe your neighbor has more space for water. Can I drink water from streams, rivers, ponds, lakes, or mysterious springs? So weirdly, water, if the earthquake's big enough, water is probably going to bubble up into the streets. It's very strange, but it's not good. So can you drink from those? No, not in an urban setting. We have too many chemicals around us, too much chance for industrial waste or a sewage leak. So no, in an urban setting, it is not safe to drink from those sources of water. What about if you have a swimming pool or a hot tub? Yes and no. If the water in your hot tub or your swimming pool hasn't been contaminated with flood water or storm water, you can use them for personal hygiene or cleaning, but not for drinking. There's too many chemicals in there for you to be able to filter that out and make that drinkable. Okay, so other sources of water. Your hot water tank, if you are lucky enough to have one, is a fabulous source of water. It takes a while for that thing to cool down. Don't make your hot water tank be your primary one. I'm going to encourage you to make sure that it is strapped down appropriately. This is something called plumber's tape, which is really meant to hang pipes from the ceiling. It is not meant to strap down a hot water tank. Make sure that your hot water tank is strapped down with something that looks really sturdy. And if you're not sure about it, go to Ace Hardware or Home Depot or whatever and buy a kit that is meant to strap down a hot water tank. This is not something you want to mess around with. You do not want this much water to be wasted. You don't want your hot water tank to come off the wall and hit the ground.
Make sure that strapping is attached to the studs, not the drywall or plywood or anything else. Make sure your hot water tank is attached securely to the studs behind it. Again, you do not want that to drop. If you are to the point where you are looking at your toilets for water, do not touch the water in the bowl. Don't do anything with it. Leave it there. You can use the water in the tank, but I'm going to encourage you not to use any chemicals in your tank, like the kind that turn your water blue in your toilet bowl, because that means there's chemicals in that tank that you do not want to mess with. So leave the tanks in your toilet clean, free of chemicals, and yes, you can use that water. I would definitely boil it if you can first. I don't honestly think you have to, but if it's possible to boil that water, it's probably not a bad idea. Don't use chemicals in your tanks. If you were at the grocery store and you had a choice of these two containers of water, use the hard plastic one. It's just a little bit sturdier than this milky plastic. Nothing wrong with this, but this clear plastic is just a little bit sturdier, might last, might survive bouncing around a little bit better than the milky plastic. Big fan of buying bottled water in that, wrapped up like that. Bleach is often used to make water drinkable. Bleach doesn't get rid of chemicals in your water. If there's oil or gasoline or any insecticides, pesticides, anything like that in the water that you're trying to make clean enough to drink, Clorox bleach isn't going to cut it. But for that water that you're pulling out of the back of the tank, I would absolutely drop a couple drops of bleach in there. Another thing to know about bleach is that it decreases in potency pretty quickly. In fact, bleach is made stronger when it's manufactured in the summer than when it's manufactured in the winter, because just sitting on a shelf, heat, all that kind of stuff decreases the potency of bleach. So if you use bleach in your household for laundry, for cleaning, for whatever, I would encourage you to buy in a small enough bottle that you are going through it every 6 months. If you don't use bleach very regularly, very often, do not buy a gallon of bleach, because by the time you get to the end of it, it is not going to be near as potent as when you first bought it. So buy bleach in smaller quantities so that you're using it up roughly within a 6-month time period. This is a washing machine hose. Something to think about, because I'm going to back up a second. On your hot water tank, the valve where all that water drains from is at the very bottom, very, very bottom, hard to get to. So that tiny little hose I showed you is really good if you want to spend a couple extra bucks. Buy a hose, throw it on top of your hot water tank, never think about it again. But if you ever need it, you can attach this to the valve at the bottom of your hot water tank and get that water out of there instead of trying to shove a bowl under the hot water tank. So it'll just save you some hassle. And then I also included directions on if you want to get really fancy and get something like this. This is a 55-gallon drum. It is food safe, which you absolutely have to get food safe barrels. I've given you directions on how to fill this if this is something you're interested in. There are chemicals that you can buy, again, off of Amazon. You throw that in there before you fill it with water, and it's good for, I want to say it's either 5 or 10 years. I think what they're selling you is really fancy bleach, but if you're going to go to the trouble of filling 55-gallon drum, do it once, do it well. This isn't something you're going to want to empty and refill every 6 months. Okay, so someone was asking about filters. Filters, I just refuse to teach anybody to be a chemist. I'm not a chemist. Don't even try it. Don't even try and filter water in an urban setting. Things like this, like what we're seeing here, this life straw, these are meant, just like the picture shows, it is meant for you to be out in the wild outdoors with a fresh running stream of water in front of you, and this thing will filter out weird bacteria and viruses that are maybe coming from upstream. But this is not going to work in an urban setting. We have too many chemicals in our area for this to work. And just look at how this young person is laying down drinking out of a puddle. That is not compatible with trying to survive post-earthquake. You can't lay in the street and drink out of puddles. This isn't helping you get water to boil beans or make coffee or anything. Life straws are just not going to cut it. In order to filter water in an urban setting, you're going to need some pretty fancy charcoal. And I'm not even going to get into it. I couldn't recommend one. I won't recommend one. What I urge you to do is buy bottled water and tuck it away. Don't try and filter it. A lot of people have this idea that they're going to walk down to a lake, Lake Union, Lake Washington, whatever, some pond, Green Lake, whatever. They're going to walk down, they're going to fill up a 5-gallon bucket, and they're going to haul it back to their home. That is just, if you think about the logistics, it's just insane. It's not going to be possible. It's too much lugging of water. Can you even get to the shore? Can you even get to the water safely? And then all the sewage and everything else that is poured into that body of water, and you're going to lug it back to your house and filter it in order to support your household. Don't do that. Please don't make that your plan. Buy bottled water as much as you can. This is another device that I see people talking about, which again is concerns me. This is basically it's a plastic bag that when you fill it up, it will mold to your tub, and you can fill it up as if you have a bathtub full of water, but it's encased in plastic, so it's not evaporating. This is an interesting idea for a very different type of disaster. This is really good for typhoons. When you have a massive storm coming or a hurricane, a massive storm coming and you get days of warning. Yeah, that's a great time to fill your bathtub and then use that water to flush your toilet. It's a really reasonable thing to do in a different kind of disaster, but not post-earthquake. As soon as the earthquake happens and you put this thing in your tub and you start filling it up, you have just now sucked in all the water, the contaminated water around your home into your bathtub. Not a good idea. So we're going to move on to power outage lights, our second topic of the night. These are examples. So they're plugged into outlets, hallways, basements, maybe any place where if the lights went out, you would have a hard time getting out of without some light. That's where you plug them into. And what happens is when these devices notice that there is no longer electricity flowing through your home, they light up. The kinds I've shown here, you can actually pull them out of the outlet, and because they've been there the whole time, they're completely charged up and they stay lit up, so they then become your flashlight to walk to the front window or try and figure out if everybody else around you is out of power or is it just your house. Another option, and I'm just telling you what's out there, figure out what would work well for your house. This is a light bulb, a regular old light bulb kind of, that senses when the power goes out. And because it has been screwed into the lamp the whole time, it is charged up and it will light up as soon as the power goes out. So again, it just kind of alerts you that the power has gone out and helps you move around your home safely. And this is like a hardwired option. Again, it senses that the power in your home has gone out, so it lights up. So there's a bunch of different options out there. Again, just kind of figure out what would work best in your home. Where would you need this to light your way to get out of that area safely? Next week, January 31st at 7 o'clock, we're going to talk about the other utilities we didn't touch on tonight, so more than just water, and then sanitation, which is one of my favorite topics because I think figuring out how to handle pee and poo after disaster is just so important and so under discussed, I guess. Something I wanted to talk about, there's a lot of folks that are trying to buy big containers. They're either 5 or 7 gallons containers to put bottled water in. And it's not a bad idea. The reason I didn't go for something like that is those containers are really expensive because they're made of food grade plastic. They're good quality, so they're expensive. My concern, especially though, is that they're so heavy once you get them filled, I can't move them around easily. I certainly can't pour a glass of water out of one without spilling it everywhere. So I can kind of see the value of them. They're stackable, that kind of stuff. But just think about how practical is it going to be to haul your 5 or 7 gallons of water out of wherever you've tucked it to then start using it. And if that seems insurmountable, then maybe just stick to the gallon jugs.